Servus my Harley friends, welcome to another episode of Stefan's Garage. Today, once again a Wilbers install, but one that we didn't have before. CVO Street Glide, new design. And you noticed similar color to single malt, another whiskey neat raven metallic. And we're gonna address how to install the Wilbers Nivomat onto the new inverted forks. In order to remove the front fender, we need to remove those fork protectors. Because otherwise you might scratch them. And then as always, 1/4 inch socket, and it's going to be loud as always. Same on the other side. Don't need to be careful with this one, because if I scratch anything, we can exchange it from my bike. The new radial brake calipers from Brembo, 8mm Allen. Schauen wir. Somebody was working on this brake line, because most of the clips are not oriented correctly. And I absolutely recommend those tie-down brackets, because they are perfect to secure the brake calipers. Same on the other side. Copy paste, I would say. Brake calipers are removed. Now we need to remove the front axle pinch bolt. That's different to the regular forks. On the inverted fork, this one needs to be removed completely, not just loosened, for the inverted fork compressing tool. And now we can remove the front axle. Thing is the front axle, 19mm Allen. Now careful with the spacer and with the ABS sensor, and remove the front tire. The ABS sensor is routed through the fork leg. Just pay attention not to damage anything. And we can put the front wheel aside and continue with the triple trees. Diese rüber, dann sehen wir die Schublade. The next step is to remove the cover here. For that we remove the tray. And that's pretty straightforward. Just pull it out on one side and then on the other side, and then slide it out and put it aside. Then we have a cover here at the fork lock. Carefully remove that cover will show it in detail. We have one hook and one plastic tab. Underneath the cover we have two Phillips screws. And then the last thing is two Allen bolts here at the side, 532. Same like the cover on the older style street glides. And then there are just two plastic tabs here and here to remove the cover. Careful with the fuel tank, but I know if I scratch it, then we're gonna take the one from single malt. And now carefully remove the whole cover. Here we go. And now we have perfect access to the upper triple tree fork pinch bolts, and we can exactly measure the fork legs. So now we will remove the first fork leg, 1/4 inch imperial socket. Go. First fork leg removed, and now we need the special tool for the inverted forks. Next thing is we're gonna open up the first fork tube with the special oil filter tool, and for opening I take the special set of pliers, because then we are not going to damage the surface of the top nut. Okay, kannst du loslassen. And there's absolutely no pressure on those inverted forks, so we just loosen the fork tube completely. Then we're going to drain already some of the oil. And after creating such a mess, we will use the inverted fork spanner tool. And you definitely need one of those tools, otherwise you cannot remove the springs from the inverted forks. Okay, holst du mal kurz? Heute, ja, genau, das auch halten. Und most important, ich nehme es dir gleich ab, wir holen mal, ich habe beides, dann kannst du dir die Handschuhe anziehen. Fork oil smells really nasty, therefore I highly recommend. There are different of those fork spanner tools on the market, simpler ones as well, but then you need a vise. Two other people helping you, and then carefully. So, jetzt darfst du mithalten. We need to reach the top nut. And then for this application it's a 17 millimeter, and again the special set of clippers. Again, this nut is not too tight. Set it aside. Now we can remove the washer. Yeah. And now we can release the tension of the fork leg. Feel exactly when the tension is released. Careful, is unten jetzt. We can put the spanner aside, and now we have a very long preload tube. We're gonna reuse this one, and we have the stock fork spring. We are not going to reuse this one, but we are going to compare them with the older fork. Now we can drain the rest of the oil, and then we are good to go. So for the tech nerds, quick comparison. Here is the stock spring, here's the Wilbers spring. Notice the Wilbers spring is progressive, the stock one is a linear spring, and the Wilbers is just a hair shorter. That's all. And the material is of course much better. Everything is cleaned. Now we fill in the oil. Once again, the special tool. Oil level is 120 millimeters, but of course we need to bleed the fork before. So fill in quite an amount. And you see this until you see the surface. There we go. Now the bleeding is a little bit different, like with the conventional ones. There's no vacuum to be created. Just operate the fork, a couple of strokes to make sure that all the air trapped inside. Feel some resistance. Yeah, you notice you get resistance. And now everything is fine. So I'm gonna top off the oil as we lost a couple of centimeters. And we already set our oil level tool to the recommended 120. Genau, 20 getroffen. And now, first of all, the fork spring. By the way, greetings to Silvio. Oops. It's an inside joke, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. As well as always, the thicker end facing upward. Next, the preload tube. And then it's time again for the spanner tool. Once again, this one. Make sure it's seated correctly. Now you can remove the special tool. Feeler gauge, we will measure how much thread we have available. 13. So I want to have an even amount of threads on both sides, so we will calibrate this to 12 mil. Das Unterlagen. Now the fork cap. And now it's going to be 20 Newton meters of torque. You can use a guten tight or 20 Newton meters, but then you need the special nut again. So, like working on an aero engine, 20 Newton Meter hast du gesehen? Ja. Leave that one attached, and now we can completely release the spanner tool. Mittig, genau, make sure that the washer is centered. Passt, oder? Ja. Very careful with those power tools. Use only very little power. So we can put this one aside. And now we just close the fork leg. Much easier with a special tool than working on conventional forks. Okay, we will clean the fork leg. And then 35 Newton meters for the fork cap. As well, good and tight would do it, but not on the demo install. So, done with the first one. So now we insert the finished fork leg. On the inverted forks, we need to make sure that the reflectors are aligned with those screws, as we cannot correct them later on. That's it. The torque spec for those pinch bolts is 22 Newton meters. The lower ones, as two are at the same surface, we need to do this a couple of times. You see? And the top one, just a single one, gets as well 22 Newton meters. So the other one, copy paste. Okay, both fork legs are installed. We measured that both protrusion, or put in the comment what is the correct word for Gabelüberstände, that both are exact at the same height. And then we checked with the front axle that both lowers are exactly at the same level. So there's no resistance, so those are perfectly aligned. And now we will reinstall the front wheel, brakes, fender, and then we will continue with the rear. Make sure that the direction of the front wheel is correct. Yeah, it is. And then pay attention with the ABS sensor. It's routed through the lower fork. And then always use as much force as possible, the biggest hammer that you have in the garage. We had some help from a master technician. front axle gets 98 Newton meters. And the brake calipers, no Loctite, and 45 Newton meters, like on the conventional brakes. Now route the ABS cable correctly. That's the reason for those white markings. And the other side, copy paste. Brakes are all torqued down, and now the pinch ball for the front axle, 25 Newton meters. Oh, on the dot. For this important screw, very important. And now the fender, 25 Newton meters and blue Loctite. And the fender, and greetings to Gunslinger Custom Paint. The ones that are doing those nice CVO paint jobs. Ich schneide dann hier raus, dass wir nur das Piep drauf haben. Und das Auto, das vorbeifährt. And then for the front lowers, those protectors, and then we are done. I'm sure they have a torque spec. I just give them a good and tight. If you know what bird is singing in the background, just put it in the comment section. So, front lower is done. And now we finish it with the cover here and the sliding tray. First we reinsert the lower cover or lower trim piece. Be careful. Seated in those tabs, the Phillips screws. .532 Allens on the side. You know exactly where those had been located. You will see it on the other side. then the masterpiece. Not yet. First this cover. And then the masterpiece. And for that I will show you something. We will intentionally break it. That's a pretty fine technique. There's a spring here with some rollers. And the rollers have to fit into the tray. But the spring needs to be orientated this way and needs to be in those grooves. That's very important should you accidentally remove it. So it's reinstalled, and here are two small plastic tabs, and those tabs of the spring need to fit underneath. And then you can reinstall the tray table. A very nice feature on the new Street Glides, but it doesn't fit a GoPro, and so a very prominent so-called YouTuber had to change onto the road glides. Greetings to Matt. Yep. Now we're done with the front, and we will continue with the rear. That's just basic, changing the shocks and replacing them by Wilbers Nivomat. So in the rear we already removed the bags obviously, and on the CVOs we don't need the foot peg for the passenger with 3 legs. I haven't seen one so far. It was just playing around. It's a 9/16 open wrench and normal socket. Use the bolt, let the adjuster rest carefully on the exhaust. A little bit smaller extension might do it as well. I just wanted to be away from the nice painted side covers. Okay, and then we remove the left-hand rear shock. 3/4 inch socket. Here we need the extension to have enough clearance above the exhaust. First one, copy paste on the other side. Nivomat one on the left hand side. Make sure that the Wilbers sticker is facing to the rear, not the other one. Make a little bit of Loctite on those bolts. just a hair in length difference, so nominally they have the same length. And here on the other side as well, Wilbers sticker facing to the rear. Here it's not that vital like on the Nivomat shock. Das bisschen Loctite-Rest drin von vorher, müssen wir gleich vorsichtig sein. Okay, those bolts get 90 Newton meters and blue Loctite as you've seen. So, the left-hand saddlebag can be reinstalled. Here we need to do the initial sag adjustment first. So, last part of the install is the rider sag adjustment. Also, you have provided all your detailed weights when ordering the Wilbers. You need to make sure that it is within the operating range. Therefore, we have lifted the bike in the rear, that the rear tire is not touching the ground. And then we take the base measurement. You can take it with a special tool like this or with just a tape measurement. And just note that value. I will just use an even centimeter value and place a mark here. No, I don't need to place a mark. It's exactly where this marking on the bolt is. And later on with the rider sitting on the bike, this value needs to decrease, needs to sag by 20 millimeters. If not, you have to adjust the preload on this side that you have 20 millimeters rider sag, and that's it. No further adjustment in the future necessary. Lowered now, the owner is sitting on the bike, one foot on the floorboard, the other one of course on the ground, and then we will check. That's spot on. I marked 18 centimeters and we are now at 20. So no further adjustment necessary, but I will of course recheck it without the camera in my hand. And now on to the test ride to test the new Nivomat on the new chassis. Thanks for watching. See you soon.